everyone, and welcome to WDIM News. My name is Eric, and I want to thank you for joining me for the fourth edition of my weekly podcast, where I talk about recent movie and series news with an emphasis on science fiction. I have a lot to talk about, so let's get started where I usually do, which is with any recent Star Trek news. Jonathan Frakes, who most people know as Will Riker from the Star Trek The Next Generation crew, but has also directed many episodes of the series and many others afterwards, including 2 movies, did an interview with SFX Magazine where he talked about the past, present, and future of Star Trek. Now, one quote that was really interesting was when he was asked about the future of Star Trek in film, and he had a very strong opinion about that, and it's one that I tend to agree with. His exact quote was, "Movies are tough. Even J.J. Abrams can't get this 4th movie off the ground. All those wonderful rumors. Noah Hawley was attached to a Star Trek movie, and Quentin Tarantino was toying with people's emotions about doing a movie. If those 2 names can't get an effing movie made, I don't know. TV is the future, it seems to me." I tend to wholeheartedly agree with Captain Riker here. First of all, the fact that Star Trek doesn't have a movie in production right now isn't really a big deal, but it is a big deal the way that Paramount is handling it, because they're acting like they want to get a movie made, but they just can't. They lose directors, they can't meet deadlines. Nobody knows about what's going on with it right now. We were hoping for some kind of update in January, but January is almost over, and still nothing about the future film. So yeah, I think Captain Riker is 100% right. And all you have to do is look at Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars is a very popular medium right now. They've got tons of series, but they've got no films in production, and nobody is looking at Star Wars as a failing franchise. But in Star Trek's case, they have this 4th, quote unquote, 4th movie. We know it's not the 4th movie, but it's the 4th movie in the J.J. Abrams universe, so to speak, that they haven't been able to get made yet. And they keep making these announcements. They even had a release date at one point with no director attached. So, like I said, I don't think it's a big deal unless Paramount makes it a big deal, and they kind of are. If I was Paramount, I would just come out and say that I am not making another movie right now. I mean, it's not like Star Trek is not busy. They've got 5 series coming out in 2023. Picard's the only one that we know for sure is not coming back. So he could have 4 more still, maybe another new one to be announced soon. So it isn't like there isn't a lot going on in Star Trek. So the first thing I would do is, if I was Paramount, is I would say, no, we're not doing any more films for right now. Maybe in the future we'll do an event style thing or an anthology series. That was kind of brought up a couple of years ago, where, it would be like a mini event where you would catch up on different crews from different eras. And they would only be, 1 or 2 hours a piece. So, you could go back to the Enterprise crew, you could go back to the Deep Space Nine crew. You could do a lot of cool stuff. I don't remember who exactly came up with that idea, but it was about a year ago, I think, that it was first out there. But either way, I think that you should listen to Jonathan Frakes. I mean, he has really worked with Star Trek so much. He understands it. The way that I see him act with other actors, he seems like an actor's director. Like, he seems to get the people that he's working with, and the people that he's working with seem to like working with him. So, and who knows more about Star Trek right now than he does? I mean, he's been involved, in front of and behind the camera, probably more so than anyone else at this point. So I would at least give him the rights to maybe a new series. We know that a new series will eventually come out. If they're not going to do a movie, then they have to do a new series. I will say that. I would maybe, if you're Paramount and you're going to announce that you're not doing a movie, maybe announce the new series shortly after, to whet fans' appetites once again, and give that series just to Jonathan Frakes. I'm not saying it has to be a series based on Will Riker. I'm saying make him the executive producer and see where he could really just take a narrative and build it, and there's a lot of exciting ideas out there. I think he's ingrained in many of them. I think he's directed virtually every series, maybe not the animated ones, but all the live action ones. So, I would get him, more and more responsibilities and listen to him more and more. And maybe even, if there's some rumors that Alex Kurtzman might not be around that longer. I mean, I know we hear that all the time that Alex Kurtzman is going to get fired, but we haven't been hearing a lot from him lately, which leads me to believe that maybe he is stepping back. I know that he's working on a few other productions, a few other big productions, so he may be shifting his focus a little bit. Maybe give Captain Riker, make him the executive producer over many shows, or give him head of all series production. I think he's just done such a great job. And I think the fan response to giving him more, it would, get a great fan response. I don't think anybody, he did 2 movies. I'd say one of them was he did Insurrection and he did First Contact. So First Contact was really good. I think Insurrection was a good episode. As a movie, I don't know how it holds up, but 1 out of 2 ain't bad, I guess. But he's done just a lot of other work that's been great. So I would give him as much as he could take. And as I've said many times on this channel, you want somebody that's in charge to really love Star Trek, to really be ingrained in its history. And I don't think you could do much better than Jonathan Frakes. So let me know in the comments. Would you like to see him take over a series? Would you like to see him, do more stuff? And what do you think? Do you think we need another film to say that Star Trek is popular right now, or can Star Trek exist without a film in production? The only other news this week from the Star Trek camp is that a trailer came out for the 3rd season of Picard on Sunday. I will record that video actually after I'm recording this video, but it should be on my channel by the time you're watching this. So make sure you pin that and watch that trailer breakdown after you watch my podcast here. I'll also put the link to it in the description below, so you could check it out. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's weird though that they put out a teaser for a trailer. A trailer is already a teaser for a series or a movie. So to put out a teaser for a trailer, I think is a little bit overdoing it. I didn't even watch it. I didn't even watch the teaser for the trailer. So let me know in the comments. Do you guys, do you guys like the teasers for the trailers, or do you think just having, a trailer is enough? So the next thing I want to talk about isn't science fiction based, but it is about popular series. A really interesting list came out from the Nielsen ratings, which I was surprised they're still around, but apparently they are, and they still are listing the most popular series, and they've even advanced onto streaming. So as you can see on the screen right now, I've got a list of the top 15 streaming programs overall in 2022. And as you can see also, Netflix is kind of killing it a little bit. I mean, they've got 13 out of the top 15. So that's good news. They've got to be happy about that. But I will say something, Stranger Things is uber popular, of course. They're going in to their final season. Ozark, I liked Ozark. I didn't, it was kind of presented to me as the next Breaking Bad. I didn't really find it to be that. I found it to be good in its own right. But one problem, I don't want to get off on a rant here. One problem I have kind of with Ozark is that it took a lot of awards away, I think, from Better Call Saul. I don't know, Jason Bateman, who's the lead in Ozark, goes head to head with Bob Odenkirk, the lead in Better Call Saul. And Jason Bateman just kills him over and over again. And while I think Jason Bateman did a fine job, if you watch Ozark, he's basically playing Jason Bateman. If you've seen Jason Bateman pretty much in anything he's ever been in since Teen Wolf 2, he is that character, or he is that person, that character, whatever you want to say. And Bob Odenkirk had a freaking heart attack on set, and you can't give him, he can't win over Jason Bateman. In my opinion, Ozark just wasn't a better show than Better Call Saul. Maybe because it gets compared to Breaking Bad so much, I don't know. But for me, Ozark, good show, but not better than Better Call Saul. Definitely not better than Breaking Bad. In the third spot is Wednesday. I haven't actually watched that series yet. I think my daughter has. I should probably ask her about it. The interesting thing about that is if you look in the third column, you can see the number of episodes. Wednesday only has 8 episodes compared to all these other series. So that's pretty impressive. But I know Wednesday does have a second season planned. So Netflix is kind of weird about canceling series. I know that recently, like the head of programming just came out and said, we've never canceled a successful series. And that I can't imagine that that's true. But successful can mean a lot of ways. It's one of those statistics or analytics that you can kind of make say whatever you want in a lot of ways. So, but Wednesday having only 8 episodes and being in the third slot here, I'd say that's very promising. But Cobra Kai, another one going into their final season in 2023. So if I'm Netflix, I'm feeling good about this. But then you also got to think, Stranger Things, Ozark, Cobra Kai, you're losing those. And also on this list, the Umbrella Academy at number 13. I know that's also going into its final season in 2023. I have to admit, a lot of these other programs I haven't watched. The Boys and the Rings of Power, I'm a huge fan of. The two entries from Amazon. The Great British Baking Show, I watched a while ago. I didn't even know that was back on. Maybe I have to check that out again. But the other series I haven't really watched, so I don't know. I think Dahmer was a limited series. I don't think that that's getting a second season. It is very interesting that Netflix is so dominant in this area. But Amazon does have 2 shows up here, The Boys and Rings of Power. And again, Rings of Power, only 8 episodes, just like Wednesday. So maybe the fact that Amazon has 2 entries in the top 15 means that they can eventually kind of be a competitor to Netflix. But right now, it looks like Netflix has no competitor when it comes to the top streaming programs. This list right here is the top 15 streaming programs overall. So this includes a lot of, legacy programming. You've got your Grey's Anatomy, you've got your Criminal Minds, Gilmore Girls, Seinfeld. There's not a new episode of Seinfeld coming up anytime soon. The Simpsons are on here. But still, Stranger Things killing it, And again, Netflix killing it. Disney Plus finally shows up on this list. But you will notice that none of the MCU Disney series are on here. That kind of surprised me because you hear about them a lot online and, a lot of people talk about them, but no MCU Disney series. So maybe you got to wonder how successful they are. A lot of people that I listen to has said that there might be some fatigue going with the MCU and superheroes in general because, the MCU, their phase 4 had just, I think, like 4 times as many properties as a usual phase for them. If you're not familiar with what that means, the MCU kind of releases bunches of movies that are kind of connected. And at the end of the phase, they'll all kind of coalesce or move into the next phase or whatever. In the first phase, it was only like 4 movies, but in this last one, it was like 20 or 30. It was crazy. I know COVID had a lot to do with that and messed things up, but it is interesting, I think, that no MCU series are on there. So let me know, of those top 15 series, are you fans of any of them? Are you surprised that any programs are on there or any are not on there that you are a fan of? I will say that I'm a big fan of the Amazon series, The Boys and the Rings of Power, and I think that those will just gain in popularity. They're each going to have at least 4 more seasons. Rings of Power could go even longer. The Boys already has at least 1 spinoff coming out in 2023. I think there's another one planned. So I think that, Amazon eventually could creep up on Netflix. But for now, Netflix is just the world heavyweight champ. So continuing to talk about the most popular series on right now, I want to talk about 2 cancellations, 1 possible cancellation, and 1 early renewal. The first I want to talk about is a possible cancellation, and that would be the Hulu series, The Orville. I've talked about this series the past few months and my kind of feelings about it. Recently, just this last week, the president of ABC Entertainment, Hulu, and Disney branded television streaming originals made a comment about the future of The Orville, and he said the following: "We don't have anything to share right now. It's a great show, and I know that the fans loved having it back in their lives. And Seth MacFarlane did a great job, uniquely as he can, in front of and behind the camera, but we don't have anything to share right now." Again, I just think this is more evidence that The Orville has all but been canceled. I can't see this series coming back. Some of the reasons I brought up before, all the actors have been released from their contracts, so if they do come back, they would have to renegotiate with each actor. I don't know if all of them would want to come back. I know Adrian Palicki has said before that she kind of wants to move on, I believe. Of all the actors, though, I think the most concern would be with Seth MacFarlane because the man just has to be too busy. Just this last week, Family Guy got renewed for 2 more seasons. American Dad got renewed for 2 more seasons last year. He also has the Ted series based on the movie that was about the talking teddy bear that came to life. He made a series for Peacock, for the streaming series Peacock for Ted. So that's still coming out in 2023. And this is a guy that doesn't just act and doesn't just produce, he does both. And he would do both with the Orville. So I just don't see how the man has enough time to take on a series like the Orville, to write it, to direct it, to star in it. It's just, you've got to create like a day between Wednesday and Thursday to get the Orville renewed. I think that that's really the only the only thing that could happen, because Seth MacFarlane just has so much going on. And, the Orville the Orville is popular, I should say, but it isn't, it's not on that list. I think if it was one of those series on the list that I just showed you, we wouldn't be talking about this, obviously, but it's not. I think one of the reasons that it is so popular on Disney Plus is there's nothing really else like it on Disney Plus right now. So I think that the best case scenario for the Orville, and I think this is actually very possible, is that in the next couple of years, we will get maybe a film, a straight to streaming film, or a holiday special. Seth MacFarlane has done some great holiday specials on the Family Guy. I don't watch American Dad, but on Family Guy, he's done some great Christmas specials and some other ones too. So I could see the Orville coming back for a Christmas special. That would kind of maybe shift the tone back to the first couple of seasons where, a lot of fans prefer the Orville. Myself would be included in that. I think they could pull off a great holiday special in the same vein that the MCU just did with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they did a Halloween special as well. I think that having the Orville come back for a Christmas special makes a lot of sense. I think it would make a lot of fans happy. I think, again, it would bring the tone back to the original tone from the first 2 seasons. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about the future of the Orville? I'm not saying that I don't want the Orville to come back. I know that I was critical of the final season. Selfishly, I still want it to be on the air. I want, even if it's not my favorite thing, it was good enough that I'd want to see more of it. A lot of those characters, I'd like to see what happens with them. But we'll see, So let me know in the comments. What do you think of the future of the Orville? Do you think there is a future of the Orville? What do you think of my idea about a holiday special? I know one of the critiques was all the singing in the last season. A holiday special, they could bring that singing back, so that would fit right in. But yeah, let me know. What do you think of the future of the Orville? On to a brighter note, we're going to talk about a series that just got an early renewal, and that is The Last of Us. Again, I record these on Sunday mornings, so up until this point, I've only watched the first 2 episodes of The Last of Us. By the time this comes out, I will have watched the 3rd. I'm still a huge fan. I think at this point, I like it better than the games. I definitely like it better than the second game, and I'm going to talk about the second game a little bit more here in a second. But I really think at this point, after 2 episodes and the trailer for the rest of the season, I think it's going to surpass the game. I was never a huge fan of the game. I like the storyline. The gameplay I've never liked Naughty Dog gameplay like Uncharted. They did Uncharted as well. Something about it, the sneaking. I'm more of a Leroy Jenkins. I just like to run in there and kind of smash people. But I was never a huge fan of The Last of Us, and I think that the series is going to surpass that. So speaking of which, after just 2 episodes, it was renewed for another season. So here I'll give you some statistics about the first 2 episodes. The first episode of The Last of Us was watched by 4.7 million viewers across TV and HBO Max streaming the night the drama premiered on January 15th. By the second day, that number rose to 10 million viewers. By the end of the week, it became 18 million. The premiere episode has now surpassed 22 million viewers domestically by HBO's estimates. Those are crazy numbers. And now here we go for episode 2. started off even stronger. On the night of its debut, the second episode tallied 5.7 million. That's compared to 4.7 million for the first episode, which marked a 22% increase. And this is the second largest week over growth in HBO's history. And HBO has a long history. So I think that this is a sign that The Last of Us is an overwhelming success. I think that the storyline is original enough so you don't have people saying, "Oh, it's just The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead's going off the air, and this is supposed to replace that." It's a lot different than The Walking Dead. I myself was a fan of The Walking Dead pretty much until Negan came around. I think that's pretty much when everybody kind of stopped watching The Walking Dead. I think that The Last of Us really has a chance to be a great series, but it does have an issue with content because unlike a series like Game of Thrones that had all these books and all these appendices, and you've got Lord of the Rings that has all these thousands and thousands of pages, The Last of Us only has 2 games. And the creator of the series, who's now also the executive producer and director on the live series, has said specifically, "We have no plans to tell any stories beyond adapting the games." He told this to The Hollywood Reporter. "We won't run into the same issue as Game of Thrones since part 2 doesn't end on a cliffhanger." So what they're basically saying is they're only going to tell the stories in the games. And it looks like to me, they're telling the whole first game in the first season, which means the whole second season would be the second game. And then that's it. So you're only going to have 20 episodes of the story. Something this popular, I would think they would want to, stretch that out. It's a whole universe, so it doesn't have to necessarily, this isn't like Star Wars where you have to follow the Skywalker family, which now they don't even do that. You don't have to follow these characters even. And if you follow the games, that's true. So I'm going to say some spoilers right here for the second game. If you haven't played the second game, if you don't know anything about the second game, I will put a time code in the description for you to pick up for my next topic, but just go ahead and stop watching now. So if you're still watching and you've either played the second game or you know about the second game, you know that Joel, the main character, dies very early in the second game. It's a big plot point. And the story, instead of focusing on Joel and Ellie, focuses on a new character. So I think that there will be, for people that haven't played the games, I don't think that that's going to be well received. Pedro Pascal is pretty much the face of this series. And this isn't like, killing Eddard Stark at the beginning of the first season of Game of Thrones. This is like killing Luke Skywalker. Or killing Din Djarin, more specifically. This is killing a major character. So I don't know how they're going to recover from killing off Pedro Pascal unless they're going to have to get some, I can't remember the other character's name, the main character for the second game that's not Ellie. But whoever gets that part has to be a name, because Pedro Pascal is not going to last very long. Kind of like Anna Torv in this season. She's a great actress. She was the main actress in Fringe. She was just on Mindhunter. I really like her. But of course Tess doesn't last very long in the games, and she didn't last very long in the series either. So Tommy was a character that was introduced early and does return towards the end of the first season in the first game. But I don't know. I think that HBO is going to have to reap the rewards with season 1. I don't think that season 2 is going to be as well received as season 1, especially by people who have not seen the game. I think that people that don't know what's going to happen and just think they're going to get 10 more episodes of Pedro Pascal are going to be shocked and are going to, I think it might be another Negan moment where people just walk away from the series and are like, this is just too crazy. I know that there's an uproaring for fans of this Last of Us games about this live series taking out these spores. That's why characters in the games had to keep wearing face masks and gas masks and stuff. And that's how people would get infected with the cordyceps, was inhaling spores. And the series didn't do that for 2 reasons. One was they didn't want to have their main actors in gas masks the whole time. Pedro Pascal already stars in The Mandalorian, where he wears a mask 99% of the time. So if he got cast in another series where they're not showing his face, if I was him, I'd be like, come on, what's what's going on? Like, why don't people like my face? So they're not going to do that with The Last of Us. But the creators also brought up another good point where it's kind of not believable that spores in the game, you kind of walk through areas where spores are present and you can like detect them. But it's not really realistic in life. If something's airborne, it's airborne everywhere. It's not just airborne in like this specific corridor that's like lit up on your map. So they took that out and they added this element to the cordyceps virus where it's connected by this like world tree concept. I'm not going to go into that, but it's this concept that everything on Earth is connected through nature. And The Last of Us live action series took another step, and now I guess anybody that's infected is connected by the infection because it grows in the ground, but it can also die too. It's not really. I mean, the series so far has done a good job to explain how the infection broke out. But as far as the current state of the infection, it hasn't. I remember in the first game, they specifically said what percent of the population had survived. I think it was 60% or something like that. And in this case, they haven't. So I don't know if that's just another change from the games. But I know that some people from, fans of the games are in an uproar about that change. I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes sense for a game where you have to put a mask on and you have to go through a specific area, do a specific thing, just like every game that's ever been made. But for a live action series, you want to show the main, faces of your main actors, and you want to come up with a situation that's pseudo believable, or at least more believable than spores just being concentrated to one area. So that's one change that was made, and there's already an uproar about that, but that's from the gaming community. I just think that from the TV watching community, there's going to be a huge uproar if they do The Last of Us Part 2 as The Last of Us Season 2, and Pedro Pascal lasts 2 episodes maybe, and the rest of the season is just Bella Ramsey versus a new character. So we'll see what happens, but and apparently that's what they're going to do. That's what Neil Druckmann is fine with doing. He's fine with only doing 2 seasons of The Last of Us. I don't know why you would put such a popular IP down, especially one with a universe like this that you could build off of. You could build off other characters. They also do a time jump in The Last of Us from the outbreak to when Joel and Ellie meet. You could do a whole series about that prequel, area or that time. So there's a lot of meat on this bone. I don't know why they just throw it away, but apparently that's what they're fine with doing. So as of right now, there will be a second season of The Last of Us. It will be based on the second game. So let me know if you have played the game, what you think of it, and if you're excited to see it adapted, and what you think of the series so far, and especially what do you think of the changes? I actually like the changes, but if you're a purist of the game, you might not. But let me know how you feel. If you are a purist, I'd like to know why this kind of affects your viewing of the series. So finally, the last thing we're going to talk about are 2 series that also got canceled, and those are 2 series on HBO Max, and that would be Titans, the DC Titans, and Doom Patrol. Now, in all honesty, Doom Patrol is not a series I watch, but Titans is one that I watch religiously. That's a show I watch as soon as it comes out. I've been a huge fan of that. The main character, Nightwing, or Dick Grayson, whatever you want to call him, he's one of my favorite characters from the comic books, and I think this series really does a great job adapting him. His look, the way he acts. I know that early on, the fact that he was not a fan of Batman was something that, again, fans of the comics latched onto and were like, that's not my Robin, but I think they've done a great job. A lot of the other characters they did a great job with. Doom Patrol, again, not a series I watch, but I know that Brendan Fraser is on Doom Patrol, and he's like one of the most popular actors out right now. So I'm surprised that they wouldn't continue on with this series, because I'm sure that a lot more people are watching it remembering that Brendan Fraser is on it. Also, Akiva Goldsman, who's responsible for a lot of Star Trek right now, he was responsible for Picard and Discover, and I know he worked on Discovery. He also executive produced the Titans. So that's another good creative force behind that show that I like that is, that is going to get canceled. Both series, the Titans and Doom Patrol, are in their fourth season. So apparently both series will end after their 4 seasons. I don't know if they knew about this before the series ended, because it sounds like these decisions were made a while ago. Specifically, somebody assumed that the reason that both these series were canceled were because James Gunn has taken over as the head of DCU Films. And someone said that to him on Twitter, and he responded to that person on Twitter and said, "The decision to end the series precedes us, but I certainly wish the best for the talented group of creators, actors, and the rest of the crew that produced both shows." So James Gunn had no bearing on these shows getting canceled. So that leads me to believe that this decision was probably made in 2022, even if the actors didn't necessarily know about it. If the actors did know about it, then maybe we will get some kind of ending on both series, which is nice. I hate it when series end and they think they're getting another season and it ends on a cliffhanger and you don't know what happens. But I guess we'll see. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Titans. I'm sorry to see them go. I kind of thought that they were just going to do a reboot of everything. It looks like another show that I like, Superman and Lois, is going to be canceled after their upcoming season, which is, I don't know if it's going to be on the CW because everything's getting canceled on the CW. I've heard good things about Doom Patrol, but for some reason it just doesn't interest me. And I am a big fan of Superman and Lois. I know that they're replacing one of the main actors this year, so it's already going to hell in a handbasket, so to speak. So it looks like these series are not going to be on for much longer, which is sad, but at least they had a good run. But let me know in the comments, are you a fan of these shows or do you not care about them at all? Like I said, I'm a fan of DC Titans, and although there hasn't been an announcement about Superman and Lois, I think it's all but said that show is getting canceled. So let me know if you like that show as well, and if you plan on watching the final seasons. Well, that is all I have for you this week. A reminder that I did do a breakdown of the latest trailer for the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard that just came out. So make sure if you haven't watched that video, you watch it after this one. Also, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like button right now. And if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell. I don't know if you heard, but a lot of YouTubers have seen their views go down, and I am not immune to that. So I would love it if you could just help me out. And just by hitting the like button, it doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me out a lot. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week on WDIM News.